There is a growing sense tonight that Russia is preparing for a renewed offensive against Kyiv in the coming days. Western officials say Russian forces are regrouping around the Ukrainian capital while continuing to bombard the city. Ukraine says holding off Russia's attack for another 7 days will be crucial. At the same time, Moscow has agreed to open more humanitarian corridors for 12 hours to allow civilians to escape. We go live to Khmelnytskyi, Lviv and Hungary in a moment. But first, a look at how evacuations are progressing. Thousands continue to flee their homes as Russian forces continue their offensive. Sumy has had the most success at evacuating civilians. About 5,000 people were able to leave yesterday. More buses are being sent in to help thousands more get out of the besieged city. Hundreds have been fleeing the town of Irpin just outside Kyiv, despite there being no safe evacuation route. Residents in the city of Mariupol have been trapped for days amid heavy shelling. The southern port has been surrounded by Russian troops for more than a week.
Нет тепла, света, воды, газа, связи. Собственно, нет ничего, никаких бытовых условностей. Всю воду собирается с крыши, по дождя, родники.
Ukraine has urged Russia to honor its ceasefire agreements in parts of the country. This is after reports that Moscow continued shelling humanitarian routes in previous attempts at ceasefires.
До мене звертаються мешканці Волновахи і дуже просять, аби сьогодні обіцянка Російської Федерації була виконана і люди змогли покинути свої місця, де вони зараз укриваються від вогню градів і нищівного вогню, який їх вбиває.
The United Nations says more than 2 million people have fled Ukraine. It is believed Russian troops are regrouping around Kyiv in preparation for a new assault. But diplomatic efforts to end the violence also continuing. Russia and Ukraine's foreign ministers will meet in Turkey for talks tomorrow, the first since Russia launched its attack on Ukraine 2 weeks ago. A Ukrainian journalist, Andrei Dekhela, joins us live from Khmelnytskyi, that is in western Ukraine. Andrei, these talk of a renewed sense that an offensive is being prepared against Kyiv. Is that the information you are hearing on the ground?
Yes, there has been this sense all over the past few days, I think a week already. So there has been information flying around that the Russian troops are regrouping around Kyiv. And right now, the city is focused on the preparations for repelling the invasion forces. And the Ministry of Defense has already named a few of the most important directions from which they expect the attack to be mounted. In addition to that, there is this convoy, the very long, 5-kilometer long convoy of military vehicles by Russia that has been standing still 60 kilometers from Kyiv for a few days now. And as of 2 days ago, the latest satellite photos show that the convoy is still there. It's not moving. And the analysts say that most probably it is stranded there and it has no gasoline, so no fuel at all to move forward.
And while Western Ukraine, where you are, is somewhat removed from from Kyiv, you're still not completely isolated with the air sirens going off many times a day.
Yes, that is true. I think on a normal day, we here get maybe between 1 and 5 air sirens. I don't think the city has seen any damage itself just yet, but there have already been shelling reported around the city, about 40 kilometers in some military infrastructure targets. But in general, the city is reasonably calm and quiet. It is just that the sirens work in a way that every time a city can be threatened by something that is located by the defensive capabilities of Ukraine, all the air sirens in any city that could be threatened by a plane or a rocket, all these sirens turn on. And then we have to go to the shelter and stay there until until we hear that we can go outside.
Well, we appreciate the information you bring us. Andrei Dehel speaking to us from Khmelnytskyi, Western Ukraine.
Let's get to Philip Crowther now, who joins us live from Lviv, Ukraine. Philip, there have been new attempts to get civilians out of Mariupol as well as other cities. How are evacuations progressing?
Well, these are treacherous, very fraught moments for those 200,000 people, half of the population of Mariupol, who it is believed want to and need to get out of that city in the southeast of Ukraine. Now, these are fraught moments because there were past attempts to get safe passage out for civilians that did not work out. This is an emergency to get people out of Mariupol as quickly as possible. And there were agreements between Russia and Ukraine in the past, over the last few days, that did not hold up. The most recent example yesterday, when humanitarian convoys were able to drive into or at least close to Mariupol, they, according to the Ukrainian authorities, were fired upon and were not able to come out with civilians on board the buses that were part of that convoy. Similar things happening the few days beforehand with Russians firing on civilians appears to be the reason why those ceasefires and those safe passage corridors did not work out. Now, the good news, though, is that for the first time yesterday, one of those safe passages out of one of these besieged cities was possible and did work. This was in the city of Sumy in the northeast of Ukraine, another place where people were desperate to get out. And according to one senior Ukrainian official, thousands managed to get out yesterday. If those kinds of local ceasefires hold, then it will be possible to bring thousands, tens of thousands, hopefully, of people out of those cities where humanitarian aid is badly needed inside. And if those people can get out, then they will hopefully try to do so.
Meantime, Philip, the foreign ministers of Ukraine and Russia, they're going to meet in Turkey potentially tomorrow. That's an initiative by the Turkish president himself. Can we expect much from those talks, though?
Frankly, no. These are two countries who are at war, of course. We're now into the 13th day of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But the good thing is that these are two sides who have been talking throughout. There have been 3 rounds of talks already between Ukrainian and Russian delegations, each time on the border between Belarus and Ukraine. Belarus, of course, remember, one of those places from which Russia staged its initial attacks and its invasion of Ukraine. So you'll see the foreign ministers of Russia and Ukraine get together, mediated by Turkey. And the good thing, in a sense, is that there might be something to build upon. If these ceasefires, these local ceasefires today hold, if thousands, hopefully tens of thousands of civilians are able to escape those cities and humanitarian aid is able to get in, then there is something to build upon, some kind of trust within this terrible war that might exist between the two warring factions right now. There are a lot of places where that safe passage is supposed to be organized today, not just Mariupol in the southeast, not just Sumy in the northeast, but also the suburbs to the north and the northwest of the capital city, Kyiv. Civilians want to get out of there, not toward the west or toward the north. No, they want to get toward the capital city itself, which right now is still a relatively safe place for people.
Philip, thank you for that update. Philip Crowther there in Lviv, Ukraine.
More than 2 million people have so far fled the conflict. Hundreds of thousands have arrived in Hungary. Ross Cullen joins us live from Zahony on Hungary's border with Ukraine. Ross, as the invasion drags on, conditions become more dire. What conditions are refugees arriving in now compared to the first days of the invasion?
Oh, hi, Jill. We're at the railway station here in Zahony, a town on the Hungary-Ukraine border, and it's one of the main entry points for people fleeing the war coming into Hungary by train. This railway point has services from Ukraine and then you're able to travel on to Budapest. There is a free service being laid on for people coming from Ukraine to travel further into the country. But in terms of people here, they are fleeing from Western Ukraine and further into Ukraine as well, being able to reach initial safety here in Hungary in towns like this one, Záhony. And just outside the station building behind us, Jill, a major operation is in place, a big food tent offering free soup, free tea, coffee, sandwiches, everything to support people who've just arrived here. Also, and babies, so there is changing areas, there are nappies, there are hygienic products. It's mostly women and children coming here as well, also the elderly, and there's actually cat food and dog food being provided as well, because many people are fleeing with their pets. When they come here, there are even services like SIM card providers, so they can try to get in contact with loved ones as they've arrived into safety, but into a foreign country where they don't speak the language. It's not just Ukrainians fleeing, but other people who are living and working inside the country. I've been speaking to Mexicans, Zambians, South Africans, Nigerians who have been studying or working in Ukraine, but have been forced to travel long distances across the country to try to reach safety. We're about 900 kilometers here from Kyiv, so it gives you some sense of the size of Ukraine, Europe's biggest country. But when they come here to this town, there is a school as well here, Jill, that's been converted. The sports hall is covered now with dorm beds for adults and children. The canteen has also been turned into a dormitory. All the students have been sent home to study online to make space for refugees. And I will also just mention there's a lot of activity behind us with trains here. It's not just people arriving from Ukraine, Jill. There are also people returning, going the other way, going back to Ukraine. We've been speaking to dozens of people who still have friends and relatives back in Ukraine who've been either unable or unwilling to leave. And so people here have been taking services back into Ukraine with food and blankets to try to support those people who are still inside the country.
Now, Ross, for most Ukrainians fleeing the conflict, Hungary isn't their last stop. And why? Where are they wanting to go?
We were speaking to some people who've been fleeing the war earlier, and they were headed to Switzerland, for example, Jill. People trying to get an onward journey further into Europe. Of course, they originally come to particularly these 4 European Union border states of Poland, Slovakia, Hungary and Romania, which have a frontier with Ukraine. But they often want to move further on to major cities, for example, like Budapest, the Hungarian capital. There are regular services, those free trains going throughout the day that people can take to go to the capital. There are more services there. There's more facilities for shelter, perhaps also the opportunity for an international airport, people trying to return home after fleeing the war. One of Hungary's other major cities, Debrecen, they have been opening up facilities there that they usually have ready for the summer, campsites and holiday lodges, trying to get them ready earlier than usual to try to support people. There's also been an offer from the government for Hungarian nationals hosting people from the war. They don't have to pay a tourism tax, and people who are fleeing are able to access certain areas of the labour market more easily than in the past. So there is an effort to try to support people in initial entry points, like you say, Jill, here right on the border when people have initially left, but then they are wanting to move further on to other countries, not just deeper into Hungary, but beyond that towards countries like Switzerland, France, even further afield like the United Kingdom.
Ross, thank you for that update. Ross Cullen is in Hungary.